All right, everyone, welcome to the March 26th meeting of the Rotary Club of Beaver Creek. I'm your host and president, Mike Canada. I'm glad to see all of you could make it today. I'd like to thank our greeters. I'd like to thank Mike Zwick for our great speakers and programs, Jim Gundel and Alex Zaharia for our website and YouTube, and Beth Cusack for our book dedication. See a couple members I haven't seen in a while, so a special welcome to you. Any guests that may be joining, and if you are a guest, I'd like to pause so you could introduce yourself, please.
Am I the only one having trouble hearing?
Yes.
We can. Okay, moving on. And as always, a special welcome to Greene County Prosecutor David Hayes. Thank you so much for making time for our club. Can you hear me, David?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you out there for a minute, but you're back.
Okay, good deal. Good deal. Thank you for making time for us. So far, our club's been averaging 37 on Zoom and about 12 on YouTube. And with that, I will turn it over to our Sergeant at Arms. Looks like he's driving or in a car at least, Mr. Dave Fleming.
Dave reports he has no audio because he's in his car because his power is out. Is that right? Shake your head, Dave.
Uh-oh.
It's probably the better of the Sergeant at Arms reports.
Ready to go anytime you are.
It says he's connecting to audio. Let's give him a
And
second.
we go to lunch after 1.
Yeah.
Give him a second here. Dave, are you?
That was a great sergeant's report. I think we should move on.
Oh, now he lost video.
I agree with that one, Eric.
All right. Well, without knowing what's going on in Dave's world, we will move on to show and tell. And I wasn't here last week, so I'm remiss that I missed that. But this week that I hear, we have Miss Sandy Brubaker to do a little show and tell for us. So I'll turn it over to you, Sandy.
Okay. Not to be outdone by Dr. Hunter, I have a PowerPoint presentation. So let's see if I can share it.
You should be good.
Because pictures are fun. Okay. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm originally from Long Island, New York, and I can turn on the accent, Long Island, New York, where we have dogs and cats and whatever else. So I can turn that on pretty well. Lived there for 6 years. We moved to Troy, where I grew up and graduated from Troy High School, and I still live there. I do have one older sister who I put older in big caps because she likes to try to pass for the younger sister, and I never let her do it. And my dad was an engineer. He worked for Grumman in New York. He worked on the Apollo lunar module and the F-14 fighter jet project. And people say, why did you move from New York? He wanted to get away from the taxes and all of that going on. And so we moved out here, and he started working at Copeland Corporation, which is now Emerson Technologies. My family, my immediate family consists of my 22-year-old daughter, Haley, and I have 2 cats. This is Milo. He's the one who sheds blood every once in a while on my arms. I kid and say I must taste like chicken because he bites. This is my lover boy, Milo. And this is my new grand dog, Finn. And my daughter lives in South Carolina. She graduated from Bowling Green, and she's just completing her first year of teaching first grade down there in Aiken, South Carolina. My education, I went to Bowling Green State University and graduated with a marketing degree in business. Planned to be a salesperson of some sort. That didn't pan out, and it's probably a good thing. And I'll go on with my career a little after, but after working at Edison Community College, I decided I wanted to go back and become a licensed counselor. So I went to UD, graduated from there, and I am an LPC. And I included this picture because I am proud to say that my daughter went to Bowling Green and is a graduate from there too. And as we were looking at colleges, she was at the stage where mom didn't know anything. And she later told me she really just went to look at Bowling Green because she knew I went there. And I had to keep my mouth shut the whole tour, and she wound up loving it and choosing that school to go to. So careers. As I said, I was at Edison Community College for 20 years. I was the vice president for student services and enrollment management. So what that means is any of the support services like financial aid, the cafeteria, sports. I led the marketing team there, thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think Dr. Hunter, I'm not sure if you said that you enjoyed graduation each year. That was probably the highlight of the year, is watching these people receive their degrees, because it was life-changing for them. After I left Edison, I helped to start Franklin University in Beaver Creek. I was the director of that campus there for 2 years. Then I met Dick Gould, who somehow convinced me to come work for him at the treasurer's office, and told me to give him 2 years as his chief deputy, and then I could get back into higher education. And 5 years later, that didn't work, and I'm still with the county. I'm now with Greene County Juvenile Court, and I am the program partnership coordinator. So I work with the community because we can't do things by ourselves here at the court. It's truly a collaborative effort with community agencies, and I'm also the fiscal director here. For enjoyment, I love gardening. I love my flowers. I kiddingly say it's my therapy each year. I love playing golf, playing a lot of scrambles, including ours. I like to read. This sounds funny, but since I drive from Troy to Xenia, I've recently discovered audiobooks, and I love getting in the car now. So that's great. I like to travel. I've been to quite a few different countries. Probably my favorite trip has been to Italy. Exercising, yeah, kind of. I torture myself each year, as you can see here, with some other Rotary members running the 10K, whether I've trained for it or not. And I am signed up for this year, and I have not trained for it, but that's okay. And I couldn't resist putting in my wine. And so you combine wine and vacation, and this looks like the perfect picture to me right there. That's it, just a little bit about me. And I just put a couple of little sayings on there that I resonate with me. That's it.
Well, thank you, Sandy. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself. And it's nice to get to know our members a little bit more. So you get to nominate someone for next week. And if they decline your nomination, then we'll take volunteers. But I think the fun part of this is you getting to nominate, and you don't have to say now. You can think about it till the end of the meeting, and then.
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, Carrie Tucker, you're on.
Is she here? I didn't see her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, Carrie, see you next week. It sounds like.
Yeah, we had yeah, sure, Sandy. Yay! I'll contact you to figure out what I can do since I've been MIA for so long.
Well, Carrie, this is just it's something small, 1 to 2 minutes, something about yourself or something that you're proud of, or just anything. Trophy. Bring one of your children and put them on your lap. It doesn't matter. Just something.
That would be difficult considering they're both like way bigger than me. But yes, perfect. I would happily be doing it tomorrow.
All
or
right.
not tomorrow, next week.
Again,
Perfect.
thank you, Sandy, and thank you, Carrie. All right, moving on to Happy Bucks. We're getting right through this meeting.
I have a couple that I'd like to say. As most of you know, I've been volunteering with the Greene County Health Department clinics, giving the vaccines, and the two happy bucks I have are for the Beaver Creek Township Fire Department Auxiliary, who's donated, I think, over $2,500 towards that now, and also the Greene County Health Department, who I think at the end of today will have almost 30,000 vaccines out of that facility. So I'm real happy to have been a part of that, even though I've had to step away now for some other commitments. But
Thank you, Don. Any other happy bucks?
I'll throw a happy buck in. I got an email yesterday that the COVID trial that I'm participating in will do a crossover study starting April 20, which means if I didn't get vaccinated in December, then I'll get vaccinated in April. And that's the Novavax vaccine, which has been shown to be 96% effective, I think, in trials so far.
Do we have any other happy bucks?
How about a happy buck for our Wright State Raider women's basketball team? I know they got knocked out yesterday or Wednesday, I think, but they beat Arkansas in the first round of the NCAA tournament on Monday, and I thought that was awesome. I can't remember the last time men or women won an NCAA tournament basketball game. So to beat a team like Arkansas was pretty cool to watch.
That was a big win.
Mike, I have a happy buck. I started the Rotary International Leadership Institute 2 years ago. Session 3 was canceled 2 years ago because only 2 of us signed up for it in the district. Then I signed up for it again last year, but COVID-19, so it was canceled. But they went remote, and I was some of our own Rotary, and I'll let them give their happy bucks. But the great thing is we have great 2 instructors that I'm going to give a shout out to.
I still have to get that journey. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, that's a great program, and our club always shows up really strong for that, and it's a testament to the people in our club that want to be more knowledgeable in Rotary and step up into leadership positions for our club. So I'll give a happy buck for that as well, Alex. Any other happy bucks?
I'll throw a happy buck in because I'm glad that this going through 3 of them in like 3 months is over, because it was a lot of work.
All right, if I don't hear any more, any others? All right, we'll move on to announcements. There is a board meeting today, right after our meeting. All are welcome to attend. If you want to attend, just hang on to the Zoom meeting after the meeting adjourns. Save the date. The 2021 Ohio Rotary District Conference is April 23rd in the evening and the morning of the 24th. This will be done virtually, of course. I think they're combining 4 Rotary districts. There's no cost to attend. The registration opens soon. They will have music, trivia, a keynote speaker, and I hear that it's BYOB. So you can't turn that down. So if you need more details, please let me know. But again, that's April 23rd and 24th. We'll be holding a Founders Day meeting in person this year. And I'm really looking forward to it. We're gonna make it nice. So there's more details coming on that, but that is scheduled right now for May the 7th. And lastly, if you're a guest and you haven't already, please put your email down into the chat bubbles so I can mark that down and invite you to other meetings. Anybody else have any other announcements?
Yeah, just real quickly, I want to keep Steve Helling and his family in my prayers for the senior firefighter who passed away, and also kudos to Beaver Creek Fire for covering 4 of the stations so those senior firefighters can participate in the ceremony.
Mike, I have an announcement. This year, I've been asked to run the Rotary four-way test speech contest again with the Beaver Creek High School. And I've been in contact with Danielle Burke, the speech and debate coach at the high school, and we're still trying to settle on a date. But it looks like this is going to occur face to face. It turns out all of us judges have been already had our second vaccination, and we can be masked and socially distanced in the classroom. And I've heard through Danielle that the kids are absolutely sick and tired of Zoom. So more to come. It'll probably be held around the week, sometime in the week of the 10th of April, in that time frame. The school will pick. It'll be later in the afternoon, about 5:30. And I've already got the judges lined up. I had heard squat diddly out of district. I don't think that there's going to be a district level four-way speech contest this year. I've been trying to get a hold of the district chair, and I've heard nothing back. I know that the conference is going to be Zoom for the district conference, and I can't see how they're going to do a district level four-way speech contest. So anyway, we're going to do it.
There is a district four-way speech contest planned. Stuff has gone out. I think Mike should have gotten something. It's going to be videoed. So the winners from each Rotary Club will do their speech in video and submit it to a Dropbox. And then the judges will watch the videos and judge them from that. So it won't be held live. It'll be held dead, I guess is what you would call it. So it'll be done by video. And I think Mike has all that info to pass on to you.
Thank you very, very much, Eric.
Yeah, Denny, thank you for chairing that as well. And if I receive anything from, I'm also going to reach out to the district as well and see if I can find out more information for you, because Eric knew more than I did just now on that. So, but I do know that they're going to have it. So thank you again for that.
I'm on the committee, so I kind of get the inside information. I will send the email to both Denny and Mike, so you have it.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Any other announcements? All right, at this time, I will turn the mic over to Commissioner Dick Gould, who will be introducing our speaker for today.
Thanks, Mike. I've got the pleasure of introducing our Greene County Prosecutor, my good friend David Hayes. In the parlance of Justice Kennedy, he would be labeled as a good Dave, as he's an attorney, obviously. A little bit about him. I won't go, he sent me this extensive bio. It would take me most of the meeting to read, but he graduated high school in 1992. So he's a young pup, at least in reference to this club, and immediately joined the Air Force Reserve. Came back in 2001. He got his associate's degree from Sinclair, went to Wright State. Then he went to UD for law school, graduated in May of 2004, passed the bar in October, and started working at the prosecutor's office I've got this here as I dig through this. And of course I can't find it. I think it was September 2004 and November 2004, became a felony docket attorney in 2005, and he's done over 2,500 felony cases and over 60 jury trials, ranging from everything from burglary to murder and the like. I think the neat thing about one of the neat things about David is that he, with the Air Force Reserve, he stayed as an enlisted even after he got his degrees, at least initially, and made it to the rank of Senior Master Sergeant. and was first sergeant for 2 different squadrons with the 445th in at Wright Pat, and then ultimately attained the rank of captain and worked in the JAG office. So in November, well, first, I guess his first one in March, he ran for prosecutor in the primary, and a hard fought and well-deserved win there. And then in November, he was elected and took office January 4th. So without further ado, here is our new prosecutor, David Hayes.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. Before I begin my remarks, I first have to acknowledge the presence on the Zoom call of my beautiful wife, Amanda. Amanda, are you there? Are you going to unmute? Oh, she's just waving. All right. I point out to Amanda because every success that Dick just mentioned is directly related to her and her support. So she's my biggest fan most of the time. So first, I want to thank Rotary for inviting me today. I know that I believe the title of the presentation was the new vision. And the new vision for the prosecutor's office can be best summed up in 2 words. And those are what I call deliberate development. It is my goal to
You froze.
Approach every part of what we, but it's my responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. So, and before I tell you about some specific initiatives that we are going through, I did have a brief PowerPoint presentation to educate you about the office. I don't know how many of you know exactly what the prosecutor's office does. I'm going to try to share this screen, so please let me know if it works. Is there a PowerPoint on the screen?
Yep.
What?
Yes, sir.
Oh, all right, wonderful. All right, so let's talk about the prosecutor's office. What do we do? There are 5 primary divisions of the Greene County Prosecutor's Office. The first, and the one that you hear about most of the time, unless elected officials are suing each other, is the criminal division. That is the tip of the spear. That's what you see in the paper. The next is our civil division, which I'll explain in some detail later. Primary responsibility for representing elected officials here in Greene County. Next is our victim witness division, which provides services to victims of crime throughout Greene County. Our child support enforcement division, which collects tax money on behalf of the government for people who don't pay child support. And then finally, our juvenile division, which is exactly what it sounds like. It represents the state against juvenile offenders and also represents children's services. So let me tell you about the criminal division. We have 4 docket prosecutors, including 1 chief trial counsel, who I believe is on this call as well. His name is Andrew Hunt. Andrew joins us from the federal government. He actually worked for Bill Skank, and he left the office here to go work for the U.S. Attorney's Office. And then he came back to work for me when I got elected. We have 1 appellate counsel who handles all of our appeals. 1 first assistant criminal chief, whose name is Suzanne Schmidt. That name may be familiar to many of you. And we have 5 administrative staff members. The criminal division is responsible for prosecuting all felonies committed by adults in Greene County. So I want to talk a little bit now about that deliberate development. What's our goals? What are we trying to do? I don't think any organization should be 1 deep at any position. Traditionally, our administrative staff have handled 1 thing and 1 thing only. They become very proficient at it, but it puts us in a bind if somebody is unavailable, or if somebody has to take a leave of absence, or if somebody leaves, which has happened recently. So we are we're basically rotating our administrative staff members to make sure that they're cross-trained, so that if one falls out, another person can come in. It can't be improved. So we have to keep an eye on the numbers and what we do. In 2020, there were a total of 823 felony cases that were filed. in Greene County Common Pleas Court. Compare that to 2019, we had 884 cases. And in 2018, we had over 1,000 cases, 1,051 cases. And those are just the filings. Those don't include cases that we evaluate and decline charges on, which ranges between 150 to 300 cases a year. In 2020, our as charged conviction rate was 81%. Compare that to 76% in 2019, 77% in 2018. And I'll talk about my goals at the end. Charged conviction rates is one of the things that you hear about with regard to prosecutors' offices. It's used often as a measure of how successful a prosecutor's office is. And I think standing alone in a vacuum, that might be true, but I think a much better barometer of how well the criminal division of a prosecutor's office is doing is talking to the police officers that they serve. Because what you can't capture in a plea discharge conviction rate is the amount of time that a prosecutor spends with a detective, with a victim, trying to get a positive outcome in a case that presents challenges, including domestic violence cases, sexual assault cases, the really tough cases. That being said, however, I'm committed to getting that charge conviction rate up. The offenses that we prosecute range in seriousness from simple drug possession to murder. There are presently, I believe, 3 or 4 homicide cases that are pending before the Common Pleas Court, including 1 death penalty prosecution that myself and Andrew are handling together. We do not presently have any specialty prosecutors in Greene County. So of those 884 cases, of the spectrum of cases that I just described, our prosecutors handle all of it. We don't have a prosecutor dedicated to sexual assaults or domestic violence simply because we cannot, we don't have the resources for that. We don't have enough people. So let's talk about our civil division. In the civil division, we have 2 assistant prosecutors. We have 1 administrative assistant. And as I mentioned before, we're the state Rick Perales, the clerk of courts, the county treasurer, every single township trustee. We'll get to that in just a minute. But I want to talk to you about the assistant prosecutors that we have there now. So as part of the deliberate development that I talked about, Steve Haller, who used to be the Greene County prosecutor, is now the chief of the civil division. And there's a young lady named Sherry Stout who was moved to the civil division from the criminal division. Just to tell you, give you a little more idea about the clients they have. So there's 2 attorneys there. And you can see some clients, and I'm sure Dick and Rick will back me up on this. Some clients are more needy than others. Some clients have more requirements than others. But we try to give them all the same level of service. And one of the things that I told Steve that I wanted him to do when he took over is that he needs to set benchmarks for responsiveness and the time it takes for him to turn around a product. That was not the case before. It is the case now. So the goal is to respond to clients within 24 hours of communication, whether it's an email or a phone call, and to sit with the client, talk about what they need, and develop a deadline that's mutually agreeable to both parties, and then meet that deadline. Treat these clients the same way you would treat private clients if you were in a law firm. Knowing, of course, there are some differences, but as far as your level of investment and commitment, that's what I expect from the attorneys who work in the civil division. I counted them up. There are about 55 different entities that these 2 attorneys provide legal services for. They review contracts, they engage in statutory interpretation issues for their clients, they represent them in certain types of litigation, and then they just give them general legal advice. And it is a very time-consuming process. And beyond, I'll be frank, it's over my head. I spent all of my years in the criminal division, so I'm very grateful for Steve Haller and Sherry who take care of this responsibility. Next, I want to talk about the Victim Witness Division. We got 6 advocates, we have 1 director, and we have 1 administrative assistant. The Victim Witness Division of the Prosecutor's Office is one of the most important parts of the office because it enables the Criminal Division to do its job better. Victims of crime, when they encounter the criminal justice system, have already gone through a trauma. Oftentimes, it's the worst experience of their entire life. And then they have to encounter the criminal justice system, which can be complicated, can lack compassion. And then, of course, they have to talk to attorneys. And all of you know how difficult that can be. So what they do is they report on-call emergencies involving crime victims. They go out to hospitals on sexual assault cases and meet the victim there in the emergency room. They assist law enforcement with death notifications. They provide support and assistance to survivors. And this is where they help us. They communicate with victims regarding the criminal justice process. And as the name states, they advocate for crime victims. And they help us, the docket prosecutors, organize interviews with victims and other witnesses in certain cases. So they let the attorneys, and this is the best way to describe it, they let the attorneys focus on the legal issues of a case while they focus on the human issues of a case. Those complicated emotional issues that every victim of crime goes through. And so they are extraordinarily important part of what we do. Child support enforcement. I have 2 attorneys in child support. I have 2 administrative assistants out there. And their job is to represent the Child Support Enforcement Agency, which is part of Job and Family Services, to collect money that is owed to the state by non-custodial parents. I know it's hard to believe, but some people do not pay their child support, and they receive benefits from the federal government. And our job, we are contracted with Job and Family Services to provide this legal service. And what they do is they operate in all Greene County courts with the exception of probate court. They're one of the few parts of the office that works in every court. Their job is to establish paternity in child support cases. They establish support orders. They file contempts for non-payment. They file misdemeanor, and they even file felony charges if the case is serious enough. And the cases that are serious enough, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in non-support payments, in arrearages, and it's support that these kids never see. You know, the kids never get. I was in the Child Support Enforcement Division when I first started at the office, and I prosecuted cases where they had not paid child support for 15, 16 years. And that's 15 to 16 years of those kids not getting the support that they need from their non-custodial parent. So I do want to shout out to Chris Murray, who is our chief of the Child Support Enforcement Division. Chris is just a machine. He's been there, I believe, almost 20 years. He's very good at what he does. He is respected by all of the courts in Greene County, and I hope to have him for a long time. Let's talk about the numbers for child support. And these are numbers from 2019 because 2020 was a little, because of COVID, they weren't able to put together what they consider to be accurate numbers. They established 14 paternities, 177 child support orders. They filed 562 contempt motions, 142 motions to impose a jail sentence, and 9 criminal charges were filed in 2019. And that's with those 2 attorneys devoting themselves full time to representing the Child Support Enforcement Agency. And keep in mind, whenever we represent somebody, whether it's the Civil Division or whether it's the Child Support Enforcement Agency, I want to go back to Civil for just a minute. We don't have any sort of authority over our clients. I don't tell anybody what to do. Our Civil Division doesn't tell the elected officials what to do. And the only reason I say that is because if you remember the big snowstorm that we had in February, I actually got a call from a person out in one of the townships who wanted me to call the township trustees and order them to snowplow their street. And I had to politely explain that I don't have any authority to tell the township trustees or any elected official for that matter what to do. Our role is to provide them with what we consider to be the best legal opinion that we can and move on. And the same is true with regard to any agency that we represent. That relationship is somewhat different with regard to police and with regard to victims because they are not our clients in that sense. The victims are not our clients, the police are not our clients. The police are our partners and the victims are individuals that we serve. And I'll talk more about our partnership with the police as we go forward. Finally, the Juvenile Division of the Prosecutor's Office, there are 3 assistant prosecutors, 1 administrative assistant. They prosecute juvenile offenders in Greene County. And that's juveniles who commit crimes in here and live here. So if a juvenile actually commits a crime in Clark County, they'll be prosecuted in the Greene County Juvenile Court because the juvenile court in Greene County has jurisdiction over them because they're a minor. They also represent the Greene County Children's Services in what are called dependency, neglect, and abuse cases. Those are the cases where these are the tragic stories that you see on the news or you read in the newspaper, where the officers show up and they find kids, toddlers or young school-age kids walking on the street, or they go into a home. Let's say they're executing a search warrant. They go into a home and they find drug paraphernalia, evidence of drug use. That is when the Children's Services steps in and takes action to help protect those kids. And we have 1 prosecutor who does that. And let me tell you a little bit about him. His name is Steve Jazz, and he has a fascinating personal history. Steve actually was a JAG in the United States Marine Corps. And when he separated, he decided to come and work here at the Greene County Prosecutor's Office. It is difficult work. Children's Services is difficult work. It's difficult for the caseworkers who handle the cases. It would be difficult to even imagine the things that they see and the things that they go through. And it's difficult work for the attorneys because you see the same things that the caseworkers do. Obviously not as directly, but you're exposed to that. You're exposed to what arguably is some of the worst behavior that you can observe in society, which is a parent who's ostensibly supposed to love and care for and provide for a child, not doing that, and often doing things that are harmful to the child. But Steve he came in and he dedicated himself to this position, for which I'm extremely grateful. Whenever you can find an attorney who fits in well with a client, especially in such a difficult job, you want to keep that attorney and you want to make sure that they understand how valued they are. So let me talk to you about the numbers in juvenile court. We had 333 juvenile complaints in 2020. 62 were felony cases, 156 were misdemeanor cases, and 115 cases involving unruly conduct or traffic violation. And focusing again back on Children's Services, this is since 2018, and this is 1 attorney who is handling this. They have had 323 total cases since 2018 and 121 active cases. So this is 1 attorney who is handling 121 active cases of neglect, dependency, and abuse. So the future, where are we going? Where do I see the Greene County Prosecutor's Office going from here? We experienced some staff changes as a result of the election, but we are finally, as of this week, fully staffed. I wanted to talk about Andrew Hunt. As I mentioned, he's our Chief Trial Counsel. Christian Cavalier is a new Assistant Prosecuting Attorney in our Criminal Division. He joins us from private practice, where he was a defense attorney. And I always say that some of the best prosecutors are what I call reformed defense attorneys. Bill Morrison is one of our best trial lawyers, and he was a defense attorney for years. They have an ability to see and to evaluate a case differently than a career prosecutor does. So they're a good addition to the team. Steve Haller is the chief of our civil division. I'd be hard pressed to imagine somebody more qualified to lead the civil division and to advise elected officials. than Steve Haller, who is an elected official himself and has just years of experience on the subject. Brian Brenneman is a very interesting person. He's our new prosecuting attorney in the Juvenile Division. Brian just retired from the Xenia Police Department, the Xenia Fire Division, after a 29-year career as a firefighter. And he had previously gotten his law degree. And when our position in juvenile court opened up, he let me know that that was something that he was interested in. And he's only been here 2 weeks, but I hear good things. And Christian Cavalier was also a firefighter. He didn't retire, but I think those two individuals demonstrate a commitment to public service that is only demonstrated by first responders. I mean, first responders, our police, our fire, our EMTs. Their commitment to what they do and their commitment to their community, and no disrespect to all of the other people who serve the public who are listening to this, but I think we would all agree that their commitment and their dedication to what they do goes above and beyond that of anybody else. So I'm hopeful that they will bring that dedication, that commitment to what they do here at the Greene County Prosecutor's Office. And finally, we have Sherry Stout moved from criminal to civil, as I mentioned before. So what are the priorities? The first priority is what I ran on when I was campaigning. Violent crimes plus repeat offenders equals lengthy prison sentences. That's where we're going to focus our attention. In our larger municipalities, Fairborn and Xenia in particular, but also Beaver Creek, there are individuals who are repeat offenders. They are in and out of prison, and sometimes they commit violent crimes. When that happens, all of my prosecutors know that that's going to be our primary focus. That's where we have limited resources, just like every government agency does. And those resources are going to be devoted to that problem. First and foremost, people who hurt other people. And we're going to try to get those folks gone for as long as possible. Next, drug traffickers. Anybody who knows anything about the criminal justice system knows that drugs are the fuel, they are the oxygen for crime. And the people who sell it, the people who make large amounts of money selling it, those are the folks we're going to focus our attention on. I am committed to raising our convicted to charge rate to 90%. And I want to explain why that is. If we're moving charges on a case, or if we're reducing things, and there's probably an issue with how we're charging it, and maybe we should be charging it differently. So that's what I'm going to be focused on, working with the attorneys, working with law enforcement to make sure that we're charging the right things and that we get to the right result. It is my goal to hire a dedicated domestic violence prosecutor, and I want to tell you why that is. Domestic violence crimes are not a large percentage of the cases that we bring in, but they monopolize a lot of time for the prosecutors. And the reason they do that is because unlike other cases, domestic violence cases often result in a non-cooperative victim. The victim has a relationship, a pre-existing relationship with the person that has committed a crime against them. And that relationship is very often stronger and more compelling to them than their desire to participate in the criminal justice process. So that's something I'll be working on throughout this year. I want to modernize our case management system. I'm very jealous every time a judge gets up and says, we got a new system and we're being much more efficient. I'd like to be able to stand up one day and say that as well. So we are reviewing that as an option. And case management just means, inputting it into a database, having it accessible. Everything you might think of, because right now we are all paper, with the exception of a very antiquated case tracking system. So we need to drag the prosecutor's office into the 21st century. And finally, I want to increase the training for our assistant prosecutors. That deliberate development piece that I talked about when I started begins with training. And the more you train your prosecutors, the more confident your prosecutors are. And frankly, a confident prosecutor is a better prosecutor in court, and better prosecutions and better outcomes for victims of crime. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about for the criminal division. So we're going to focus specifically on training on sexual assaults and domestic violences, because those are the most challenging. And those are the ones that, just frankly, from my experience, prosecutors need training on the most. With that, I'm finished with my presentation, And I'm more than happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, David. Quick question for me. Everybody loves to read the stories about dumb criminals. Do you have a dumb criminal story you could share?
Well, there is a case that is pending, so I want you to understand these are mere allegations, all right? There is a person who liked to rob banks, specifically US banks, and he went to prison for robbing US banks, and he got out of prison, and the police, being proactive, decided to keep an eye on US banks. And believe it or not, guess what happened about, well, a little over a week ago? He robbed a US bank, and he got busted for it. And again, I preface it, they're merely allegations at this point. But, you know, having not committed myself to a life of crime, I do marvel sometimes at the thought, or frankly, the lack of thought that goes into a criminal behavior. In fact, Andrew Hunt had the best line that he told me when I first started here in 2005. He said that criminals live in the ever constant present. That's their universe. Their universe is right here, right now. I need something. I need it now. This is what I need to do to get it. And there's just not a lot of thought that goes on afterwards. But don't misunderstand me. There's not a lot of Lex Luthors running around, and that's a good thing. So I'm not complaining about that. I mean, I'm glad we don't have any evil geniuses running around Greene County.
So out of curiosity, what did he used to work for US Bank, or what? Does he have a vendetta against them, or?
I don't know. I don't want to disparage US Bank, but it was the easiest target.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the answer to the question. No, he had a substance abuse issue. And if you have a substance abuse issue and you don't have a job, then, you know, the easiest way to get money is to take somebody else's.
In your personal opinion, more specifically with felonies, what do you think the correlation is with drug abuse and the crime committed?
Well, the way you phrase that question makes it interesting from my perspective. The reality of most of the crime that we see is fueled by drugs in some way or another. It is fueled by an addiction that requires somebody to steal to satisfy that addiction. We have a lot of credit card thefts. We have we call felony shoplifting and other offenses because people need a fix, and you know the best way for them to get it is to steal. But the other side of that is the connection between violent crime and substance abuse. And frankly, the substance that causes the most issues with violence is alcohol. It's not an illegal drug. Alcohol is a huge contributor to instances of domestic violence and to felonious assaults, even simple assaults, which I don't handle, but the local prosecutors do. And I'm sure that if Chief Fiorita is still on the line, I'm sure that he knows that from his days as a patrol officer and as a detective. I'd hesitate to put a percentage on it, but I'd say it's better than 70% of our felony cases have some connection to drugs of some type or another.
Yeah, I will say I was a little wild in my college days, but unfortunately, I probably had the opportunity to work with you. But I will say I do appreciate the Lewin conviction that they have out there. I went through that, and you know, I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity, and obviously changed my life around. But you know, I do appreciate all you guys do. I mean, it's got to be tough, you know, because you're dealing with not so great people. But you know, like I said, I appreciate all you guys do.
Well, I appreciate those words. I can tell you it is tough. It's not easy. And the best way to describe being an assistant prosecutor is that you spend all of your time preparing for things that you're simultaneously trying to prevent from happening. And the reason is we have so many cases and we have so little time to devote to each one that we have to choose. We have to prioritize how we spend our time and how we spend our resources. I mean, I'd love to give every 5th-degree felony drug case as much attention as a murder case, but obviously that would be foolish and that would be a mistake. So, and it is those cases, those difficult cases where you have to deal with crime victims, you have to deal with the survivors of homicides that prove to be the most taxing emotionally, but they also prove to be the most rewarding when you get a positive result for those victims and for those survivors. So I wouldn't trade it for anything. Anyone who's been doing prosecution for, I'd say 10 plus years is committed. I know Andrew is, to simply making your community a better place to live and doing that in conjunction with police. So I do want to talk a little bit about the police and the partnership that we have with the police. Traditionally, Greene County has had a very good relationship with the police. It is my goal to make sure that that relationship continues and that we are truly partners, and that I personally advocate for the professionalism and for the dedication and commitment of our law enforcement officers at every opportunity. We are blessed in Greene County at large, and we are specifically blessed in Beaver Creek, and I can say this as a Beaver Creek resident, to have the police officers that we do doing the job that they do every day.
David, if I could jump in and just say thank you for all that you've done. I believe I was a young detective when you first came on with the prosecutor's office, and I've just seen you grow. And I can just tell everyone on here today that David's professionalism, demeanor, what we're seeing right here as he's talking to us this morning is how he's been from the day he started. Worked a few cases with David, and he's extremely thorough. So it's been a pleasure working with David for all these many years. Looking forward to several more. And thank you, David, for the kudos for our officers here. We strive to do the best we can, and a lot of that goes back to our community, our council, our mayor, and city manager for giving us that opportunity. So thank you, David, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate those kind words. Anybody have any other questions?
Yes, David, I do.
Yes, sir.
Over here, and the question is, how do you interact with the various judges that your cases eventually go to for hearing?
I think the best way to say that is you act at arm's length.
Okay.
I have good personal relationships with all of the judges here in Greene County, but those personal relationships have limits, of course, and it's extraordinarily important for the judiciary to remain independent. I respect that. I make sure everybody in my office respects that, and that we maintain a professional relationship with the judiciary, and that we don't do anything that would in any way contribute to any perception that that the fact that we know each other is going to influence a case. And just to give you an example, Judge Tornicio, he worked here in the prosecutor's office. I worked with him. In fact, I credit him with getting my job here. I got an internship in here when I was in law school, and I knew Adolfo's father. I worked with him at the Olive Garden. So, those personal ties run deep, but at the same time, I know that that's not going to mean anything in court. I know Adolfo and all of the judges there are going to make their decisions based on the law and based on the facts. And we're not going to do anything to impact the public perception that that's what's going on.
Got time for one more? Well, David, thank you again for making time for our club. I love the presentation. It's always nice to know what's going on over there. As part of our tradition in our club, we do dedicate a book to our Beaver Creek Library on your behalf. So I'll turn it over to Beth to do that.
David, thank you for being with us today. In your honor, we will be donating a book. It's the first of a series called The Revenge of Magic. It's a popular series for young adults. So thank you.
All right, well, I appreciate that. And thank you again for the opportunity to talk about the Greene County Prosecutor's Office. It's something I'm very passionate about. And I could talk about it all day long, but I won't keep you any further. So thank you so much. And Amanda, love you, babe. See you later.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
So next week is Levy Friday. We will have our school superintendent, Paul Otten, and our city manager, Pete Landrum, presenting about our streets and our schools. They will be introduced by JD Huddleston. We also have a special treat next week. We'll have William Jones, who is a student at Wright State and a recipient of the Beaver Creek Rotary Scholarship. He's attending next week's meeting and talking with us about his education and the impact of the Beaver Creek Rotary Scholarship. So you don't want to miss that. As a reminder, please keep an eye on upcoming programs at beavercreekrotary.com and Facebook. Is there anything else for the good of the club? All right, if you want to hang around for the board meeting, please stay on. Otherwise, have a great weekend and we'll see you next week.